Alright, a very warm welcome back everyone. Today I want to talk about another beat of mine, so let's just get right into it. Let me play back the first bars for you and then we'll analyze, of course, and do everything else. Okay, so the first eight bars and what you heard was basically we have a drum loop, in this case kick and snare, and we have some hi-hats, which are then enriched by more of those later on, just to make the arrangement a little bit fuller. And on the other hand, we have a bass, actually two of those. We'll get to this in just a second. We have this sub bass and we have a synth bass, which is here. And those are basically, yeah, the synth bass is the sawtooth you heard, and then we have the guitar, which is basically blended in again, starting from the very start and then playing its pattern until infinity, until we stop again. Okay, so this is the first thing. Then let's talk about bass. So what I did is, let me just solo this and open a frequency analyzer. So what you hear is, when you listen to this bass, is that the bass is playing on a very low level here, right? So you have between, let's say peak is around 60 Hertz and then you go to, let's say 200 Hertz. If I'm now enabling a bandpass filter starting from 350, this means I cannot hear anything, or at least not as much bass as I would like to hear. And this is why I added another bass, which is this one here. If I'm now soloing this one, you see that we have especially signal in the higher part of our frequency spectrum, which means that we can hear this on more platforms, and especially you can then also get a feeling for the bass on more platforms. This is why I combined those two, because if you want to hear the bass, you should be able to hear this on a very, very broad level, because not every speaker is capable of of presenting frequencies down to 20 Hertz or 30 Hertz or anything like this. So then we have the riser, or a riser, and we have a pad loop, which is starting and also playing until infinity. Sorry, that wasn't intended. Okay, and you also hear the hi-hats that are closed and open now coming back in again, just to make this arrangement a little bit richer. We also have the reverse again. And then at this position here, we also have a climax in the click here. So you basically hear that something else is going on, and the something else that is going on here is basically the plugged synthy that is starting to play. So I should say this would be a verse part of the song. And actually you have then the plugged synthy playing. Also some sort of ambience here, the rain. The synthy is panned to the left, and the other plugged synthy that you are going to hear in a second is panned to the right. So you have this back and forth between those, namely exactly now. As I mentioned in the last video, this panning procedure allows you to make room for other instruments, and therefore if you just pan them a little bit left, a little bit right, you can get interesting effects. Of course, for this back and forth or question-answer procedure on the one hand, and on the other hand, also to make them stand out a little bit more. If you, for example, look at a procedure where you would have a down mix for stereo to mono, it could be that instruments are not that prominent in a mono mix, and therefore if you just move them a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, it could be that you can hear them much better. And this is one of the procedures that you can apply in order to set these things in the spectrum. And while I was talking, you also hear that the plugged synthy and the arpeggio are now playing together. for the drum arrangement, there is not much happening anymore. Just you have snaps and you have a shaker, which is only for reasons of making the chorus pop a little bit more. And this is what I did here, because this you see here in the arranger track, this is the same color, so it's basically the same thing. Arranger track is something we talk about in a different video again. And here you probably hear something on the end of the song that hasn't been done before. So in this case we have a very, very harsh, very brutal full stop. So just listen to these last 4 bars and you probably hear what I mean. Yeah, exactly. We're just stopping on the one there, which I found pretty interesting, given that we have the pad or the plugged synth here, which is playing very nicely, and then you just remove everything and have the plugged and let the plugged synth have the last beat of the last beat of the song. So up to the let's talk about some effects. So first thing for the snap here. I've added a stereo delay. I mean, I'm not talking about the compressing stuff here because this is essentially the same as we did before, just to remove some sort of the dynamics and make those fit in a little bit more together. But for this stereo delay, this is actually a thing that you can apply as well. So if you want to stereo enhance your song, you could probably do this with a stereo enhancer, but you might get phase issues with this. So what you can do is just take one channel, mix this dry, and take on the other mix this to the left, and on the other channel, so on the right part of the channel, you mix a wet signal which is delayed by, in this case, let's say 10 to 40 milliseconds. And our brain is then tricked into the conclusion, so to say, that you have a stereo enhancing picture, so that your image is wider in the stereo format. Although this is not the case, just one of these things is delayed, right? So let me just solo this just here. You can actually hear this pretty well if you just solo one of these channels. And this is exactly what also happens for the guitar, I believe, here. Yeah, exactly. This is exactly the same settings. I've saved them as a preset. And then we have some chorus. This is maybe something I should talk about. This bass here has some chorus on this, which makes it a little bit more aggressive, because we have more notes, more tone in this bass. And you also have a low pass, no, not low pass, low cut filter here, because at 20 Hertz you see that the bass is playing even below that, and these low frequencies get very, very prominent when you want to mix or master your songs, and therefore I wanted to lower them a little bit, just that they are not so prominent anymore. Then we have on the guitar loop, the stereo delay we talked about. Then we have some saturation, not much, again, only very, very sparsely used here, and a vintage compressor again, which reduces the dynamic range a little bit. And for the synth bass, we have this synth bass compressed very heavily. Maybe I should go back here, just so that this sawtooth wave is not that aggressive. We also filter, in this case at 250, I believe, yeah, 300 Hertz, and in this case brick wall, because the low information is already given by my sub bass. You also saw this when we talked about this band procedure earlier, and this allows me then to just use the high frequencies of this bass, of the synth bass, and use the low frequencies of my real bass. Yeah, again, we talked about this. And then we have a sidechain compressor here, which is listening to the kick signal, and thereby reducing the bass a little bit more again. So in this case, the classic sidechaining you would use for ducking the bass. Again, the same stereo delay as we had before, not the same stereo delay, actually something a little bit different. In this case, also a preset. And of course we have reverb, which in this case is mixed from a various amount of tracks, I think, especially for these plucked synthes, and also for the guitar loop and for the pad loop. Of course, for the drums, we have a different send to the reverb drums. And in this case, we only have reverb, we don't have any delay going on. Yeah, and this is actually how this song was produced. And I think this concludes it very nicely. So I'm going to see you in the next one again, and feel free to listen to the songs below.